Dear colleagues, dear organizers, dear speakers, dear guests, dear fellow firefighters, it's my honor and privilege here today to be with you at this very important conference in Bled, Slovenia. Let me also take the opportunity to extend to you a very warm welcome on behalf of CTIF Fire Prevention Mission that I'm actually representing today. My short speech will be about a holistic approach to fire safety, and I believe that this conference actually is a perfect step towards to achieve a holistic approach. And let me switch now to a PowerPoint presentation, and let's start about my presentation. So holistic means that we are trying to approach to a problem interconnected with somehow using several factors. And when we are talking about a holistic approach to fire safety, we can say that there are three really very important factors that we have to incorporate together. We have people, and when our discussion and debate is about buildings like hotels, occupancy buildings, people are really very important. We have fire by itself with several fire scenarios, and we have a building. And this picture actually looks very simple, but we will see in a few slides from now that it's sometimes very difficult actually to defend a holistic approach and to see the holistic approach in a practice and from the practical perspective. And this is the reason why I would like actually to stress those, from my perspective, very, very important things. And scholars have a different view on a holistic approach, and we will see that there are views from a fire brigade, there are views from the building side, where we can mention architects, authorities having jurisdiction, for example, designers, and there are different views from the building owner's perspective, and somehow summarize those views, put those views in a common denominator. This can actually lead us towards a proper holistic approach. So let's try to take a look from a fire brigade perspective. So we can say that firefighters plays an important role when achieving a fire safety in the buildings like hotels or any kind of assembly occupancy buildings. But it's their perspective actually is mainly about where to put a fire apparatus, how to successfully suppress the fires, will there be a vertical risers installed in the building, will the fire brigade have a proper access to the building. In many cases, fire brigade, I would say in many cases, it's not the general rule, but in many cases, will not actually take care very much about passive fire protection, nor it can happen in many cases about active fire protection systems. It depends on the interaction between building owners, fire safety designers, architects, and building owners to a fire brigade. But this is a general conclusion that hopefully we can actually all agree on. Another view that I would like to share with you is a view from the building perspective. When I say building perspective, I mean all parties involved when we are creating building sketches, when we are building a new building, and we are maintaining a building. So those are architects, building owners, those are in many cases fire safety designers, because there are systems, and I think that the majority of systems works on this, that the fire safety designer is not coming from the fire brigade, but this is the party that's usually not related to a fire brigade. And for example, this is the system that works in Slovenia right now. And building parts will try to defend their own perspectives Architects will try to have a building that will be very nice and visible from the architectural point of view. They would like to use in sometimes very sophisticated modern materials that are not related very much to something that fire brigade would like to have, but this may be related very much to something that people would like to have. And on the other side, architects will try to make buildings that will have different shapes, maybe shape that will be similar to a pyramid, shape that will be similar to a cone. Those things looks maybe very nice, but are not related very much, or are maybe in a conflict with something that fire brigade will try to defend, or fire safety practitioners, because we know that the fire will develop in a different way, in a cube, in a cone, or in a pyramid, and those are the things that somehow has to be related together and are not in many cases. Another thing or view is view from the occupant's perspective, and this is, I think, very important. If we are going backwards a little bit, and we can talk again about the fire and the building perspective, we have codes and we have research that will define fire development, that will define how different materials will behave during the fire, and we have codes that will define how to build the buildings. We may have a prescriptive or a performance fire codes, depends on where we are. We may have a mixture of those two codes or coding systems, or we may have a mixture of prescriptive codes with some addition to a performance codes. This can happen quite often globally. But how about the people? Do we have any particular codes that define them? Not indeed. So we may have that we know something about their behavior, their attitude, their awareness to different fire scenarios. But if we will try to imagine ourselves in a hotel, we can say that local fire brigade knows pretty much about fire fighting access routes. They know about the fire supply. They know everything about a particular building. We hope that they have sketches and they have a fire plan, and they maybe perform some fire drill on the particular building. We may assume that the building actually is or was designed according to local codes and actually was approved by the authorities having jurisdictions. But how about people by itself? So we don't know who are our guests. We don't know how many of those guests are going to be in a particular hotel. We don't know, or either those guests are going to have disabilities, or maybe those guests will have a long party and will not going to be capable to respond to a fire alarm. And this is an important thing when we are trying to talk about a holistic approach. And let me try right now to summarize those things on a little bit more complex view and perspective. This is the drawing that came from a PhD study from one of students here in Worcester Polytechnic Institute 2 years ago. And student actually tries to somehow summarize the relationships between the fire scenarios and building occupants. And we may have here that we have pre-fire events or scenarios, and we have during the fire and post-fire scenarios. So pre-fire scenarios in respect to building occupants, we'll talk about sensor ability, fire service activities, behavioral responses, physical, mental conditions, etc., travel paths, emergency routes, and all those things that usually we are aware of. But those things can change during the fire and post-fire as well, and they will be in a very strong dependency on the fire scenarios by itself, ignition time, level of oxygen amount, and burning probabilities of fuel, heat, toxic gases, smoke, and etc. And this is one way how we can introduce the holistic approach. But I actually would like to point, and what I would like to stress here, is that there is a very strong and inherent interaction between building owners or building users, fire service, fire development, and building by itself. And this is the crucial point of the holistic approach. Another thing that I would like to mention briefly is strong involvement of people in these holistic systems. There are many hotels when we can see this sign. Those hotels are usually equipped with a sprinkler fire protection system, and in many cases it will say contact with a sprinkler will cause flooding. Well, from my point of view, this is a misinterpretation of fire sprinkler system. And we can go again back and try to interpret this statement from the fire service and from the building owner perspective. Usually, if we will try to show this to a fire safety designer or a fire safety engineer, the person will say, well, something that actually will be on the sprinkler, and the sprinkler will use as a hanger, will usually cause a failure in the sprinkler fire suppression capabilities. So the water delivery will not be the same as it's supposed to be. And this is not related to any kind of flooding. So, if we can summarize those things, we can say that sprinkler, as it's installed here, and will have something that will hang on the sprinkler head, will usually be obscured and will not work as it's supposed to work. So, and this is a problem that can be solved with a holistic approach. And there are solutions right now that can protect sprinkler heads very well from hanging clothes or hangers or anything else from the sprinkler head. And this is my point. So my point is that somehow we have to put together those three important parties. They have to be somehow connected at the very early point when we are trying to talk about building design, building location, and then during the construction by itself, and particularly afterwards when the building is built, maintained, and in use from people that are in the building. And from my perspective, and several scholars are sharing the same perspective, holistic approach is a permanent approach, and in a way to achieve fire safety in the buildings, in hotels, for example, we have to somehow follow this holistic approach for the whole time. So this was my really very short presentation, and I should say kickoff of I think as I mentioned before, a very important conference when you will try to talk about fire safety in hotels, occupant behavior, fire brigade response, codes, etc., etc. As I'm not there in the hotel, and it will be actually very difficult to ask any questions, but I'm very warm supporting you to send me an email if there are any comments, doubts, and I'm really actually asking you to give me any feedback. So on the end, in the conclusion, actually, I would like to wish you a very, very successful conference, a very successful work, and actually very safe work in respect to fire safety in the future. It was a pleasure to be today with you, and thank you very much, and goodbye.